Good morning. My name is Randy Belote. I'm Vice President of Strategic Communications for Northrop Grumman Corporation. I am like to welcome you and pleased that y'all came out on this rainy morning. I had to commute from hell this morning to get over here from Annapolis, and just happy to be here. On September the 25th, Northrop Grumman announced that it had received a copy of the draft request for proposal for what is round 2 of the competition to replace the U.S. Air Force's Eisenhower-era KC-45 refueling tankers. We said in a statement on the 25th that Northrop Grumman would review the draft RFP and provide the U.S. Air Force with comments on the draft. And we would defer further public comment until we completed our review. Well, we met the Air Force schedule by providing questions and comments this past Monday. Today, we're taking this opportunity to present to you some observations from our review of the draft. Before I introduce Mitch Waldman presenting our tanker briefing today, I want to take a moment to help provide some clarity in the matter of Boeing's receipt of Northrop Grumman's bid pricing information from the previous competition. We have been very clear that this is an issue of fundamental fairness, and Northrop Grumman has been placed at a significant disadvantage in the current competition. The government has stated publicly that disclosure of Northrop Grumman's actual bid pricing information was done strictly in accordance with the regulations. And as you have heard, it has been stated that pricing information Boeing received is outdated, is inaccurate, and is not germane to the current competition. Northrop Grumman has made its position clear. We disagree. To put a fine point on the issue of disclosure, the regulations require the disclosure of the awardee's overall evaluated cost or price, including unit prices. The regulations neither require nor authorize the disclosure of the awardee's proposed cost or price. In fact, they expressly preclude the government from revealing information such as this because it is confidential and thus exempt from disclosure under the Freedom of Information Act. Our competitor was not simply provided our evaluated cost or price. Boeing was provided our bid prices, including our proposed bid prices for the 4 systems development aircraft, 64 production units, and 179 units. This disclosure was not, therefore, in accordance with the regulations. As we have stated, we're working closely with the customer to help resolve this issue as soon as possible. So I hope that clarity was helpful. We indicated in our immediate advisory that today we're presenting an update of the KC-45 as well as providing Northrop Grumman's view of the Air Force's draft RFP. While he drew the short straw, I can't think of anyone better accomplished to provide our views today. There's no one better suited than Mitch Waldman to be with us. Mitch is the Vice President for Business Development of Advanced Programs and Technology for Northrop Grumman's Aerospace Systems sector. While I won't read you his bio because I know it's available, I wanted to mention a couple of highlights of Mitch's past experience. Prior to joining Northrop Grumman, Mitch served as National Security Advisor to Senator Trent Lott. Concurrently, he served as National Security Consultant to the Senate Leader's Office. And Mitch served in the Department of the Navy for over 24 years and was Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Ship Programs, where he was Principal Advisor to the Secretary of the Navy regarding all shipbuilding matters. And while I am certain that Mitch looks back fondly on serving in that position, he's more than happy to be working with Northrop Grumman today in its aerospace systems sector. And now a few administrative details. We're going to be on the record today, unless otherwise noted, and we'll have a Q&A session immediately following Mitch's briefing. So with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to Mitch Waldman.
Thank you, Randy, for that kind introduction. As I like to say, I don't do ships anymore. It's an honor for me to be here to represent the 120,000 men and women of Northrop Grumman Corporation to brief you on our observations and things that we've found as we've gone through the request for proposal. I'd also like to introduce a few other people that are with us today. Bill Wellsir, who's here in the front row. Bill is a retired Air Force Lieutenant General an operator, a warfighter, really understands capability and perspective and how to employ these warfighting systems. Guy Hicks, over on the side here, is with EADS North America, and our partner, one individual who really understands what partnership means as we build a great team to bring the best capability to the Air Force and the warfighter. And Randy, who you've already heard from, Randy's the guy that will tell you this is what Mitch meant to say. Okay, so let me kind of start at the beginning. Essentially, Randy said we got the draft RFP. It was released end of September. We received this document and we looked at it and we said, you know, this is fundamentally different than what we've seen before. So it's taken us a month, essentially, to go through and assess what this means. What does this mean in terms of requirements? What does this mean in terms of contract structure? What does this mean in terms of our ability to deliver the best value capability to the warfighter? So what we've concluded really falls into three major areas. First is warfighting capability. And after going through the RFP and really understanding it, understanding the differences from what we've seen before, the draft increases in the number of threshold requirements by a factor of 10, and it eliminates or marginalizes many of the things that the warfighter highly valued during the first competition. More fuel, more passengers, more cargo. So the question is, where's the game changer? Number two, risk. There's no apparent mechanism for the government to evaluate cost risk, schedule risk, or past performance. Since the last time, during the last evaluation, risk was determinative, it's not clear how the government's going to protect its interest from a cost and schedule perspective. Three, acquisition structure. This is not a best value capabilities-based source selection. A best values capabilities-based source selection permits smart trade-offs between capabilities that are critical versus those that perhaps are less important. This really is tantamount to a cost shootout, which incentivizes a race to the bottom in terms of capability, while at the same time employing contracting terms and conditions such as fixed price development and an 18-year fixed price structure that we really need to understand. So the question is the RFP fixable? So with your indulgence, what I'd like to do is walk through some briefing charts here. It wouldn't be a discussion without some briefing charts, and provide a bit more detail regarding these three major points. Now, I'll point out on the very first slide that this wonderful depiction of an aircraft is actually a photograph of an aircraft. This is the Australian MRTT flying. It may not look real, but it is very real. And so you can see that the boom is extended, the aircraft is in flight, and undergoing a flight test program that's rigorous. This is a 50-year decision. We've talked a bit about in past discussions that the current tanker fleet is 50 years old and getting older by the day. You can anticipate that the next generation of tankers will be around for a similar period of time. This is a 50-year decision. This is a large decision for our nation. Next slide. I want to go back and just reiterate in a bit more detail than what Randy did in terms of where we were versus where we are today. So this really establishes a baseline, and none of this should be unfamiliar. You should recognize these essentially as the key performance parameters from the last competition, where industry was challenged to provide a commercial aircraft converted into a tanker that would perform that mission and service all types of receiver aircraft. A tanker that fits into the defense transportation system seamlessly in a manner to expedite the flow and quality of personnel and cargo delivered. A tanker that could operate in a high-threat environment, and most importantly, a tanker that could deliver more fuel at greater ranges. So that was just 2 years ago. Those requirements were well stated, well understood, and they satisfied the warfighter's needs. And so the perspective is, this is our understanding of what the warfighter wanted. And I'll talk about that a bit more as I go through the presentation.